Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the World of Fit Fathers. We're being joined today by Dr. Neal Barnard, a clinical researcher and one of America's leading advocates for healthy nutrition. He's also the founder and president of PCRM, which is Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. And we're joining him in his office, and we're going to talk about his new book, Power Foods for the Brain, as well as other ways to extend our lives and stay energetic daily. Dr. Barnard, thanks for having us.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you today.
So first of all, tell us what inspired your latest book, Power Foods for the Brain.
Well, it's really two things. The first is that we've got an epidemic of Alzheimer's disease. We can use foods to really be the very best that we can be.
Now, you mentioned a couple foods, sweet potatoes. Tell us about some of the effects of that root vegetable and why Americans need to put more of that on the table.
If you slice open a sweet potato, that bright orange color, that's beta carotene, and that's an antioxidant. It protects your body. It helps protect your brain.
You also talk in the book sources of getting iron, and many people believe that you can meet some of your iron requirements from, of course, your frying pan, which you don't advocate. Why do you think there's so misnomers about where to get some of our minerals from?
I think a lot of this goes way back to when I was growing up in the 1950s and 1960s. There were commercials on television saying you need to get more iron. It turns out that you can get way too much of a good thing, so to speak. You do need iron. You need iron for red blood cells. And if you don't have iron, you're going to be anemic. You're not going to oxygenate the brain. But your body gets all the iron that it could ever need from green leafy vegetables, beans too. A lot of people neglect beans. They are powerhouses of nutrition. Now, you can get iron from red meat, but it's in a form that the body tends to absorb too much of it. So if it gets in your brain, the iron oxidizes. That causes free radicals to form. They damage the brain.
So doctors, today's standard doctors, when you talk about, let's call it a shutoff valve for heme iron versus non-heme iron. But, your family doctor doesn't tell you that in terms of where to get, this non-heme iron from vegetables that will cut off and just absorb the amount that the body needs. They immediately say red meat, red meat. Why do you think that is?
I hate to say this, but it's true. Doctors don't get a lot of nutrition education in medical school, and so they're sort of flying by the seat of their pants. But that doesn't mean that there isn't a nutritional science. There is, but the research that's moving along sometimes doesn't make it into medical practice very effectively.
People are so scared to admit that many of these diseases come from their burgers, their fried chicken, the sodas, etc., and get very defensive when you even speak loosely about veganism. How do you continue to educate not only consumers but professionals in your realm?
I think we've reached a point where the science is so strong that it's really undeniable.
The milk industry is doing a prolific job to help spearhead their agenda to the point where people will give up meat, become vegetarians, but they won't give up dairy. How can they disconnect their love affair with dairy?
I think there are a couple of things. First is that this science has really shown how many problems there are with milk. If you look worldwide, most people in adulthood can't digest the sugar that's in milk. Perhaps more worrisome is the evidence on prostate cancer. Those who drank the most milk, even skim milk, had a much higher risk of prostate cancer compared to the people who avoided milk.
Is it understood in the medical field that the earlier a kid reaches puberty, the more opportunity they may have to get either prostate or breast cancer because those are hormone-based cancers?
You're exactly right. And it's been a tragedy that has been gradually unwinding since the mid-1800s. At what age are you psychologically ready to have a child? As our diets change, it disrupts our biology, and we think, oh, isn't that great? So-and-so is filling out early. They're going to die earlier. They're going to have all the problems of midlife earlier. You want your life to be extended.
Prior to Power Foods, you have written 21-Day Weight Loss Kickstart, and this book has been very profound in my personal life. What's the premise of this book, and what inspired you to write this one?
The idea of it is that there's tremendous power in foods, but people, just as you said, might be a little bit scared about making a permanent change. So the idea is, give me 21 days, and we walk you through it, we get you ready, and we think through each meal. We get you ready, thinking through what I can eat for each meal, what if I go out to a restaurant, what if I go fast food, and what are going to be the benefits of getting away from the animal products and the junk food.
You know, the whole misconception of carbohydrates, you know, simple carbs versus complex carbs, like the majority of the population thinks that carbs are bad. How can we revert their way of thinking?
Carbohydrate is actually the fuel that your body needs. Carbohydrate releases glucose. That's the blood sugar that powers the brain, powers the muscles, it powers all of you. And what you need, you need it in a good form.
And when does the body start, if you're low on carbs, what process, or when does it start burning first fat and then protein, which is what we don't want to happen, correct?
Well, your body will start doing that right away, but it's not the best way to go. It's much, much better to give your body the fuel that it needs.
So, you know, we delve into the 21-day with like, all right, we're going to follow Dr. Neal Barnard's program. Now there's concerns about, okay, you're vegan now. There's some things that are missing that you need to make sure to happen. How do you make sure these worries aren't a major concern for people that are, you know, readily converted?
Yeah, you know, when people come in here and in a research study and we change their diets, we track their nutrition. And then when they begin a plant-based diet, we notice that most all those things get better.
Why is B12 important to the body?
Oh, great question. You need it for healthy nerves, you need it for healthy blood. And if people don't have B12, sooner or later their nerves are going to act up and they're going to become anemic.
But there's this misconception that, you know, we need massive amount of protein to build muscle, et cetera, especially if you're active. How can we debunk that myth?
There's protein in beans, protein in rice, protein in many vegetables. So you'll get what you need.
How about soy in specific? There's a lot of pros and cons with soy. What is your opinion on that?
I think it's okay.
And many people still don't know what a GMO is. How can we educate the public on that? And when do you think the U.S. will finally get some GMO labeling like they have in Europe?
Well, here's the good news. There are only 2 GMO crops in the U.S. One is corn, the other is soybeans. Not one ear of that is going to be eaten by a human being. That is cattle feed. So the person who needs to worry is the person who's having a chicken nugget.
Well, thanks for your time. I definitely appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
If you could just give our audience your top 5 of changing your life and living a healthier lifestyle, what would that be?
Number 1, what you and I have been talking about, the power of food is real. And it's really important to understand that it affects every aspect, our heart, our brain, and everything else. Number 2, you can't wait until we're 75 to change. Your body is changing now, so we need to make these changes right now. Number 3, I think people should not be too modest. Let's say I've gained weight. Let's say I've got diabetes. We can turn those things around to a very substantial degree. And as long as we don't wait, we put in the foods in our body, we get those benefits. Number 4, don't sell yourself short. For a lot of folks, they think, well, all right, I'm with you. I won't eat red meat. I will eat chicken. I will eat fish. I will eat no-fat dairy. That's not going to get it done. It's really not. It's like cutting down from a pack a day to a half a pack. Maybe, you know, it's going in the right direction, but get the animal products off your plate. See how you feel. The last thing that I really want to emphasize, and this is more important than anything I've said up until now, it's not you and me that we need to worry about. It's the next generation. If you go into a school today, you can look at kids at 7 and 8 and 9 and 10, and they are in the worst shape of any generation we have ever had in the history of this country. And when they grow up, we're going to have diabetes rates, heart disease rates, cancer rates, and ultimately Alzheimer's disease rates that are unprecedented. It has nothing to do with their genetics. It has nothing to do with bad parenting. It has only to do with the fact that our culture has moved in a way that we're putting in front of our children the worst possible foods. And you see the truth when you turn on the television. You turn on the television, half the commercials are snack foods.
Of course.
They glorify unhealthy eating. The other half of the commercials are for medicines. To say, well, take this medicine, it'll undo the effects of all the foods that you're eating. That's effectively what we're doing. And that's the culture we're passing on to our kids. It is time to say no. Foods can heal us, foods can sustain us, and if we are guided by nothing else, let's be guided by doing right, by our sons and our daughters, and the next generation really needs us to care about them.
Well, thank you. And you heard it first from Dr. Neal Barnard. For more information, go to PCRM.org. And remember, be clean, stay active, and energize your life.